Good to have you with us here watching the news. I'm Avni Raja. Let's start off with the latest developments as far as the Ukraine-Russia crisis is concerned at this point in time. Now, as the fear of invasion still looms on Ukraine, Russia has announced massive nuclear drills involving multiple practice launches of ballistic and cruise missiles. The maneuvers are planned for tomorrow along the Crimean Peninsula, which Russia annexed from Ukraine in 2014. As the development is being seen with a critical eye, Russia has called the practice launches a part of regular training. Meanwhile, there are also reports that Russia has amassed nearly 150,000 troops around Ukraine. Meanwhile, despite Russia's claims that it has no intention of going to war, US refuses to believe Russia and continues to warn that an invasion could be imminent. All right, let's get in some expert perspective here on this entire issue. Abhijit Iyer Mitra is joining in on the broadcast. Thank you very much for speaking to us. We've been seeing how this has been playing out over the last few days, especially Russia continuing to reiterate that they're don't intend to go to war or invade, but neither US nor Ukraine, the West really not believing at all what Russia is saying.
Absolutely. Look, it's I think everybody knows, even Putin's worst detractors would not accuse Putin of being stupid. And, invading Ukraine is a very dangerous business, especially now. Remember, it was the Ukrainian marshes, which start melting at this time of the year, which led to the defeat both of the Napoleon's army and the German army around this time of the year. So Putin isn't going to do anything stupid. He also knows that if he invades, there is going to be a whole bunch of sanctions on Russia, which is the last thing he wants at the moment. The problem here is who has an interest in perpetuating the story, and that has to be Biden. On one hand, remember, Biden's whole foreign policy credentials lie in tatters after the images we saw out of Afghanistan, which are just as bad as, the helicopter evacuation, that iconic portrait of Saigon with the last American helicopter leaving. So what he needs to do is he needs to buttress his credentials. And for him, he buttresses it irrespective. If his predictions come out to be right, he says, see, I warned you. And then he's got a completely new enemy, which he can impose sanctions on, act very tough, send more troops to Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, and places like that. And if it doesn't happen, he can claim, see, I'm such a great politician. I deterred the Russians from invading. Now, the problem with this kind of brinkmanship by Biden is the only people suffering in all of this are the Ukrainians. I hope you saw President Zelensky's chief advisor's statement yesterday, where he said Biden seemed to have caused more damage to Ukraine and the Ukrainian economy than the Russians ever had. Because what is happening is there's panic being triggered in Ukraine. People are fleeing. Zelensky is going on saying, look, we don't need troops. There is no invasion happening. I mean, who are you going to believe? A man sitting 7,000 kilometers away in Washington, D.C., or the president of the country that is perpetually under threat?
Yes, fair enough, Abhijit. But, the question really is now, the latest developments is that the nuclear drills are being planned as well by Russia along the Crimean Peninsula. And, of course, there are reports of, build-up of troops rather than a pullback, which Russia had claimed a few days ago as well. What does one then make of this entire situation? Is it simply that Russia is trying to draw the line and saying or trying to issue some kind of a warning without actually going to war or going into an invasion?
Absolutely. Look, this is a classic case of, dissuasion. And what dissuasion is you don't actually get into war, but you keep threatening things like this in order to, force compliance from whoever it's targeted at. Now, there's nuclear drills that we're seeing. They're basically short-range ballistic missiles. There's and troops moving a certain way, in nuclear protective gear and things like that. There is no actual nuclear weapons being deployed or anything that we see there at the moment, number one. Number two, the withdrawals that we're looking at, they are rotations of troops. If you actually go through what the Russians are saying, they're quite clear about this. This is a pre-planned rotation of troops, which, always happens. If you look during Operation Parakram, for example, troops in forward positions are at an extremely high state of readiness. All the equipment has to be maintained tip-top. And fatigue starts setting in. So you have to pull some of your frontline troops back and then get fresh troops out there, like we do at Siachen, for example. The tour of duty lasts something like 2-3 months, and then new troops keep getting circulated out there. That's what we're seeing out there, and it's nothing remarkable.
Okay. So do you then think, Abhijit, that, and of course this is now going into conjecture space, but if it wasn't for Biden constantly reiterating the alarm or red flagging that, Russia may invade in a matter of days, so to speak, do you think this whole thing would then not be not be given that kind of magnitude and importance?
It may not have, but the issue is this Biden sort of harping up the threat actually plays exactly into Putin's strategy. What Putin always wanted was to harm Ukraine without harming Ukraine. And essentially what is happening is Biden's walked into his trap, and his alarmism is harming Ukraine even more. So, Ukraine's, as the days go by, Ukraine's options keep reducing. And Ukraine, if the same situation continues for another month or 2 months, this kind of brinkmanship that we see, Ukraine will pretty much have no option other than to sign up some kind of a piece of paper saying Ukraine will never join NATO.
Right. Right. And a quick word on India's stand at this point in time. Of course, it is a fine balance as far as India is concerned. US has, made the remark that it hopes that India would, side with them or give them support if it does go to an invasion of sorts. But how is, your comments on India's position at this point?
Look, I think we already know what India's position is going to be. It's going to be the same position that the government took under the previous government, Manmohan Singh's government, when the Crimea was annexed to Russia, which is we will condemn the action. It will be in extremely soft words. That Sanskrit saying, Satyam Vada, Mishtam Vada. So we will speak the truth. We will say it very softly. There will be no harsh condemnation. And that will be it. We would have fulfilled all our obligations under the international treaties and things to condemn any kind of invasion and so on and so forth. So tick, tick, tick. There is nothing more that can be forced upon us. Because remember, our alliance, I mean, it's not really an alliance, but whatever we have with America is based not on Russia. It is based on the threat of China. Russia doesn't figure in that picture. For us, the greatest geopolitical nightmare is an alliance of Russia and China. And we have to do everything to keep Russia away from the Chinese camp. It is inevitable that at some point Russia will join the Chinese camp. But, for India to discard its own interests in keeping Russia and China opposed to each other, or at least wary of each other, in favor of America's rules-based system would be extraordinary stupidity. And it's not going to happen anyway.
Fair enough. Abhijit Iyer Mitra, thank you so much for joining us with your perspective. Of course, we'll keep track of all the developments on this front.
Thank you.
Well, those are the details here at this point in time with regard to the Russian-Ukraine crisis. We're going to continue to track the developments, but this is the latest here, drills along the Crimean Peninsula that have been planned as far as Russia is concerned. It is on one hand, on the other hand, Russia reiterates no invasion.